I want to give a huge thanks to AIA Nebraska, who serves as our partner in the design lecture series here. And also a huge thank you to all of our sponsors for their support of the design lecture series this year. The support has allowed us to bring in a great group of speakers this year. If you're an architect and you need CEUs, there were some QR codes out there, so scan it with your phone. If it doesn't work, let me know. I think it was working. So you can get credit. And then there was also posters for 2025, this year's lecture series out there as well. So take some with you, take some back to the office, put them up. Make it a lot easier so I don't have to come to your office or mail them to you. So, all right, with that out of the way, let me introduce tonight's speaker. Kevin Cavenaugh completed architecture school at UC Berkeley and served a 2-year stint building schools and homes for the Peace Corps in Gabon, I think I said that right, Gabon, Africa, and moved to Portland, Oregon in 1993. Kevin designs and develops small commercial and residential buildings using inexpensive materials and always attaining high energy efficiency in his work. From hip restaurants to creative offices to wonderful residential renters, Kevin has been fortunate to turn his good buildings into great buildings by virtue of the tenants. And because he builds with the intention of keeping each project, he also learns directly how his designs age as he maintains them year by year. Kevin was a Loeb Fellow in 2007 through 2008 at Harvard's Graduate School of Design. His current projects include micro restaurants, social capital turned architecture in an adaptive reuse livery stable fourplex, and corridor-free creative office spaces. Kevin's current obsession is to create a better vision of subsidy-less affordable housing. Please welcome Kevin.
Thank you. Ross, where'd you get that? That's kind of old. I should update my website. I need to update my website. My bad. And hi everybody. By the way, I never give the same lecture twice, so this is going to be an experiment for all of us. I am also just shy of a Luddite, so I don't know how to get my own slideshow up. I actually lived in Omaha 30 years ago. I worked, there's a spoiler alert, I'll show you in a sec where I worked, but Jared and my old co-workers in the audience. And it was such a fun year. My wife was at Creighton for a 12-month nursing program, the accelerated nursing program, and we, 5 days after our honeymoon ended, we drove across the country and just showed up, lived on California Street. It was such a fun year. 50% of, how many of you are, it's always nice to know who I'm talking to, how many of you are licensed architects? All right. How many of you are here because you need the credits? That makes sense. So 50% of folk who graduated from architecture school are like you, and then I represent the other 50% that do all kinds of things. I became a developer. So, never read a slide, so I'm going to assume you guys know how to read. It's super easy and simple to do what I do. You need to pass a lot of tests to be architects. I just needed to print a business card that says I was a developer. And sadly, when I was in meetings, sitting in your seat, I was always frustrated because the person making all the decisions usually was not the smartest person in the room, and they just held the purse strings. And that's when I realized I want to be sitting where that person is. And in most countries, I'm certainly not a big deal at all. It's sad to me that in America, the bar is this low. I'm not an asshole. Thus, Ross invites me from across the country to give a lecture about development. Anyone know who these guys are? That's where I worked. And I would walk or on my bike from California Street to that building every day. And to this day, it's the best physical office I've ever worked in. We had 15 of us there at the time. And the whole comment of don't be a dick, like Michael and Perry were instrumental for me as mentors, whether they knew it or not, or whether I knew that they were my mentors or not, in how to be kind as employers, how to be thoughtful and not just. They were good businessmen, but they weren't great businessmen, which made them great bosses. So I call phase zero. So when I'm sitting in the conference room, working for the architecture firm, and the developers across from me, I realize that they decide what phase zero is. The client decides what phase zero is, and I coined that phrase. But we get hired at phase one. Like, okay, cool. I got this piece of land, and it's going to be a 5/1 apartment building with 117 units and a little daycare on the ground floor. And I'm like, yeah, but if it's 97 units, if we erode this corner, it could be better. Like, sorry, I've already done the math. I've decided what phase zero is. You just tell me where the windows are. And that became really frustrating for me and defeating for me. So I wanted a bigger seat at the table. As you know, we design, so when I say we, I mean you, 3% of the built environment is designed by licensed architects. We are becoming more and more irrelevant. And I used to lecture to groups of architects to say, join me on the dark side. It's really fun. It's interesting. And now I realize that I'll talk a little bit later about risk appetite because that does come into play. So when I was working at LA Poyner, and then also when I moved back to Portland, Oregon after my wife got her degree at Creighton, I thought I was this guy. I thought I was a designer. I went to UC Berkeley. It's a design theory school. I'm super smart. Like all of you, I know how to design. I was doing seismic upgrades for Jefferson High School, and I was drawing, epoxy anchors. And I never got a fancy seat. I didn't wear little glasses. I didn't have a black turtleneck. So I realized that I didn't care about the money, but I care about control, and I care about phase zero. So I decided, okay, I just need to join the other side. And again, if I do that and I'm not a dick, then we can do amazing things. So started this small firm, just me, and then it slowly grew. This might be the most important slide I can show you today. So Ben Coons is in the audience, and Ben was my intern I thought it was a month, but he told me today it was a week. It felt like he flew out and he made me a beautiful model, and architecture student in Lincoln. And so on my website, I post all of my drawings, my photos, my plans, my permit sets, and the pro forma in Excel. And Ben was like, hey, I saw your pro forma, and now Ben's a developer as well. And if all you do is do what Ben did, how many years ago was that? 6 years ago, and start clicking cells. This is not a PDF. You can just download the Excel spreadsheet from my website on whatever project you want. And feel free, email me, ask me questions. Like, what does that mean? How does that work? If you become conversant in this, when you're sitting with your client, if it's a private sector client, you will be so much more valuable. You will not be arguing, gosh, please don't take out the tile tub surrounds for a prefab 3-piece fiberglass unit. It's going to be sad. You're going to use emotional words. And this is all the developer cares about. So I remember I had a meeting when that exact scenario happened, and my boss at the time, it wasn't Michael or Perry, it was just back in Portland, was arguing emotionally and as a designer. And I said to the client, hold on, by doing that, you're going to save 50 grand over the scales of the project, but you're going to get slightly less rent. How much less rent will you get per unit with these kind of crappy tub inserts? He's like, I don't know, like $7 a month. So I took out my little tiny calculator. I'm like, cool, you just lost $65,000. That's more important. So learning how to speak this language makes you a better architect. It's about the left and right brain. It's about being able to toggle back between the design and being the designer and being that guy with the little glasses and the black turtleneck and being Mr. Moneybags, understanding business. And I'm about to explain to you that I fail a lot. Oftentimes, usually when I fail, it's because I sit in one hemisphere too long, and I tend to sit in the right hemisphere too long, because, well, we're architects first. So I'm going to blow through a couple of questions. By the way, I prefer conversations, so please, ask questions, or please, if something isn't clear, or just anything, being talked at for a long time is hard for most folk, and I'm not that interesting, so please. The ocean, I bought this building. These are all Portland projects. It's so funny because people say, yeah, we can't do what you do. I'm like, what, you don't have crappy auto body shops in your town? So I bought this project, and it was just an adaptive reuse. There's very little architecture to it. But as Ross said, was reading off the website, this is not design award-winning architecture. But this is me handing keys to really thoughtful, creative people and turning an auto body shop into 7 tenants, and 4 micro restaurants. And I was talking earlier today to a friend, what's a micro restaurant? Well, it's like in New York or Tokyo, it's just a restaurant. But in Portland, it's a micro restaurant, and we have food carts, and each bay that was where you would drive your car in, it would get lifted up and your oil changed, akin to Jiffy Lube, became an eatery. The Sudra is a vegan Indian restaurant, and a really good one at that. So every city has this. This is funny, that's me talking to a subcontractor. I thought Google Street View didn't allow pictures of people, but that's my biggest, I think, claim to fame. And that's the after shot. So, the Pie Spot Bakery, where you have little pie holes, little micro pies. It's a charcuterie on the left. It's fun. I built that little bay out, an extra 8 feet, and I went to the city and I said, hey, if I don't, very strict energy codes in Oregon, if I don't condition the space, do I have to have does the thermal envelope count? Does it matter? They're like, no. So those are site-built, single-pane glazed windows. Because my comment is that this is a 480 square foot restaurant with a big cooktop. It's never gonna be like you open the door and all the air's out. It doesn't matter. The BTUs from the people in the cooktop change everything. And if I'm wrong, that's part of owning these things long term and having experiments. If I'm wrong, I'll just fix it. And this is one of the times that it turned out to be right. So there's this parking lot between the buildings. I put this little 6-foot wide building between the two, tore up the parking lot on the back side of it, planted my yard. This ended up being my house for reasons I won't go into. Like I literally had to. So I'm good at making money, and I'm really good at losing money. So we sold our house to pay off debts in the 2008 recession, and I took my wife and 3 kids over here, and this is where we have to live. And that's what it became, because we're designers and we can make cool spaces. And by the way, nobody wanted to buy that. I can only buy stuff that no one else wants. I can't compete with the big boys. But that became my home. It's now a restaurant because it's zoned commercially. We had rabbits. There's a little hutch in the back. It's two of my kids. It's a fun way to live, and now it's a restaurant. It's a Korean barbecue restaurant. Any questions on that one? All right, I'm just going to keep blowing through projects. I bought this piece of land for $1 from the city. Half of what I do is adaptive reuse, half is new construction. So here's some new construction. It's in a part of town that doesn't want to have anything that bold or vibrant or dynamic. I needed to do an infill product that nestled in, so it needed to look quaint and cute, but I was bored, so I'm like, I don't want to have any orthogonal lines from a plan view. And I had 13 different hidden, either public or hidden courtyards. But from the outside, it just looks like that. So I got to have my fun. Again, owning phase 0, it's called the 2/3 project because it covers 2/3 of the site. It runs on 2/3 of the baseline energy. That was an experiment that I wanted to do. It's active 2/3 of a 24-hour day because there's offices, there's residential, there's restaurants. Because I'm not a licensed architect. I'd give my eye teeth for your stamp. Do you have a stamp? Okay. Do you have a stamp? I give an eye teeth for your stamp. Yes, I always partner with, usually it's an architect from the old firms I used to work. I mean, I actually pitched Michael and Perry 2 months before leaving. I said, hey, can we start a development company? Because they did the Jones Street Brewery, and they dabbled in development. And so I pitched them, and if they said yes, I'd be living here, and I'd be showing you slides of stuff in Omaha. And then they would be stamping my stuff, because I don't have a stamp. But I always have to partner with an architect. But they're my design. I mean, this is the whole idea, is to own phase 0. Like this is the fun part. So from the outside, it looks mildly boring, and that's kind of what I wanted. And when you get deeper into it, it gets a little more playful. And Portland has really fun weather, despite the rain. It rains a lot, but it's temperate. So even on rainy days, it's 68 degrees. A lot of garage doors that open up where walls blur the inside and outside. That is a little bit of a theme of mine. This is my current house. I moved from the last house. My wife said she actually wanted closets. I'm good with the big picture, but some of the details, I'm not a great designer. Again, I do good buildings, but if they become great or if they win awards, it's not because of me, it's because I hand the keys to the right people. So, bought this building. It was an old library stable. That's part of the demo. And it was about peeling the roof off. It was zoned for 4 single-family houses. So I put an offer in. Another developer put an offer in to knock it down and build 4 homes. It's a really neat part of town. Very urban, very dense. And so there's a lot of building there. And I'm like, well, it's on the lot line. You can't have a window on the lot line. I don't want a bedroom window on the street side. So there's 13 bedrooms and 4 living rooms in this project. So it became about peeling the roof off and creating courtyards. And how do I create spaces and bring light in it's my first shrinking building. So I bought an 11,000 square foot building, and now there's a lot less square footage. I added second stories because the volume was really large. It's just a big wide open volume. That's the front door to my current house. But that's a fun way to. Oh, that's interesting too, because so you can see the courtyard. We rent the other 3 units. And when our kids were younger, we would rent to other families. In the backyard, This is a this is about the cleanest you'll ever see it. Normally, it just had balls and nets. It looked like summer threw up in our backyard. And no one locked their back doors, and we called it lowercase c community. Again, it's better because of who I hand the keys to. And now that our kids are grown and out of the house, we rent to like the coolest 30-year-old artists we can find on Craigslist. And there's 2 rules. 1, don't be a dick. 2, if anyone has a party, everybody's invited. So our neighbors have fantastic parties, and it's now the backyard isn't full of balls and nets, but it's like Halloween is the best time ever. You should come by our house. So I bought this, again, it's a used Cadillac parking lot on a triangular piece of land on Portland's version of Dodge Boulevard. It's not that interesting. It's a leftover piece, and I got it for a good price. And the neat thing about getting stuff for good prices, and by the way, your land in Omaha is cheap enough that there's room for you to be creative, and you don't have to do highest and best. I hate the phrase. When I'm talking to a bunch of developers and not architects, like the first thing I say is the phrase highest and best use is the most offensive phrase, and it's a lazy phrase, and please don't ever use it. Land is inexpensive, and buildings are inexpensive enough in Omaha that you don't have to max them out. And I drove around, I rented a little scooter, one of those Lime scooters today, and was cruising around. It's so much different than it was 30 years ago, but thankfully, there's some buildings that I'm not excited about, but still, for the most part, there's room, there's design here that you don't see on the coasts, because you don't have to max out. Not everything is 5/2, which is what you see, which is the most efficient way to build and to max out a site on the coasts. So I was happy to see that. This is a site where I'm just gonna build a 1-story building. I don't care that I could go 6 stories here, but I decided to build a building that had a bunch of the same windows. I wanted to build like a Japanese lantern. I want the exterior walls to be curved, and there's a bunch of, again, micro restaurants. This was really fun, and that filled up fast, and I have now a list of tenants who want to go in to my ocean project. This is 5 blocks away. So I built that. I'm like, oh yeah, lenticular art. I want to have these windows, and think about Dodge. No one's going to sit on Dodge and at a tea table and sip a coffee, or eat falafel. So I knew that I was going to turn my back to the street, but that would be unkind from an urban design standpoint. So I tried my play at lenticular art. This is looking at the same wall as this, just from the different corner of the street. So I took a 4x6, cut it in half, planed all the sides, and put it up 16 inches apart, and then hired artists to paint the side of it. So when you look straight at it from across the street, you see nothing, but at an angle, you see, I don't know if it was gonna work. The artist put all of the planks up in an empty warehouse and painted dreams. And then only when we hung them up instead of across, we're like, oh, it works. And now it doesn't say dreams anymore, it says love. So every 6 or 7 years, the paint fades, so I hire new artists to take the art. I've numbered each of the fins, put them in a warehouse, and we paint them. Gesundheit. And that's the back, so that's the part you don't see from the busy street, and that's where the fire pits and the outdoor eatery, and that's where the yumminess is. And then there's the Japanese lantern effect, where you just see the rhythm of the windows at night, and the artwork kind of goes away. So again, I don't know if it's going to work, but when you own Phase Zero, and when you're the one signing the bank loan, you can take on these risks, and it's fun oftentimes in the results. This is my most prominent building. I will say it's also my biggest failure. Not my only failure. So I got this piece of land. I went after it. I competed against a bunch of other developers. They liked my design, a speculative office building, which is a really bad idea. But at the time, this is pre-COVID, like office spaces make sense. We all work in offices. So I talked to a friend who's a commercial broker, and I said, all right, I'm building an office building. I haven't done one before. What's the part of the market that's not being met? He's like, oh, small to medium-sized design firms. Like, what does that mean? He's like, 20 to 25-person companies. What does that mean? Like, give me, how many square feet? And basically, it's 3,000 square feet. That's the spot that he's having. Nobody wants to, none of you want to be in a downtown building, third door on the left in a double-loaded corridor. That's just generic as all hell. And I wanted designers, so instead of extruding the lot line, instead of taking the lot and just building it as tall as I could. By the way, this site can go up 240 feet. So I built a mass timber building that's 6 stories, and I built that. And I don't do any hallucinogens. And I'm proud of it. You don't know at first glance that the walls that they are canted slightly. It's the top floor is 30 inches larger in both directions than the ground floor. Every 20 years, I'm legally obligated to repaint it, a completely different paint scheme. It's the most expensive paint in the world, Keim. It's a German paint. Can anyone guess the most expensive color? Blue. I haven't heard it yet. Blue, yellow, red. And this was 7 years ago. Guess what a gallon of red paint costs? $1,000. I know. But it doesn't fade. You can probably tell. So no one knows what the art is until I tell them, and then they can't not see it. So in Portland, it's the city of, you probably don't know this. Yes. Who said that, by the way? Nice. The city of roses. And no one's going to know this. If you know this, I'll be really impressed. So the state rock, the Oregon state rock is... It's the thunder egg or the geode. So every single James Jean is the artist. He's Taiwanese. He's kind of a big deal. And every single line on that building is either a thunder egg or a geode or a rose. And I'm proud of it. And in a little while, I'll tell you why it's my biggest failure. I've already said this. You don't need me to read the slide. You've already seen this. So when I talk to architects, I used to beg you to come to the dark side with me, like America needs you, and America doesn't need any more Jared Kushners, and it needs design-centric, thoughtful, creative talent. And it doesn't need this to be the first thing that someone looks at before they knock on your door, before they call you. I went to design school, went to Berkeley with my buddy Francis Dardis, and after a lecture, I went down to the University of Oregon, talked to a bunch of the young, brilliant minds coming out of design school. And I could be a little Pied Piper-like, I could be convincing. And afterwards, he's like, dude, you can't do that. Like one day in your shoes would give me a friggin' heart attack. It's not, there's so much risk involved in what you do. It's like you haven't pulled a paycheck in the last, as long as I've known you. You're not wired like most people. And he's right. So if all you do, so I hope one of you at least maybe considers doing this. But if all you do is learn this language, maybe go to my website, download it, play around, you will be a better architect for your client. You will matter more. You won't have the kiddie seat at the table. It's the left brain, right brain world. And then it's so nice to be able, when I lecture not to architects, but to young developers, I show them slides like this. Because they look at my stuff and they're like, yeah, you're weird. Like I have no interest in that. That's not compelling to me. And then I show them, they just get really quiet. Like, oh, okay, maybe we should take some notes. This is their language. We're in, without getting too weird on you, this is what late stage capitalism looks like. So if we don't learn this language, we're gonna be more irrelevant. I'm proud of these numbers. This is an infinity % return because the investors got all their money back after 5 years, and then so every distribution check was an infinity % return, and it's like, how neat is that? How neat is it to be able to make art? I view this as art that actually is functional and people can, it's only a 8,000 square foot building, but there are like 63 full-time jobs that were created off of what was once a used Cadillac parking lot. Those are all really compelling economic numbers, and I'm proud of them. Like this makes me happy. So I remember talking to Ross, and Ross called me up. He's like, "Hey, do you want to lecture?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's not a good time, Ross." He's like, "Can you be more specific?" I'm like, "Well, when I hang up the phone with you, I'm going to call for the first time in my life a bankruptcy attorney." So I lost everything in 2008. No bankruptcy. As I stand before you today, I'm losing. History doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. And so it's likely that in the next 12 months, I will file bankruptcy. Chapter 7, which is the nuclear, I'm not going to be like the Sackler family or like Trump and like hide my yacht over here and my ass. I don't, have a yacht. So it's like everything must go. And my poor wife, this is the second time, she's like, really? Like, I thought, the risk and reward thing would flatten out as you age. I thought things would mellow. But it's not, it doesn't bother me. So as I say that, so anyone, I'm like, hey, do what I do. Now I should say, but you might want to be careful doing what I do. The reason I'm sanguine about it, the reason that I don't care that I'm losing everything again is, there's my buddy Francis. So I asked him last night, like, do you have a picture of yourself? The one I found online is not very good. So Francis reminded me when I was, having a sad day. Usually I don't have sad days. That's a strange wiring problem. My hyperserotonin production's a little off the charts. But Francis said, hey, Kevin, when people drive by the zipper or they drive by the dumbbell, they don't care what wealthy white guy with good orthodonture owns the building. It's going to be some wealthy white guy with good orthodonture. They're just happy it exists. And he said, he works at a firm called Anchor Moyson, and it's the Death Star. It's where good architects go to die, and they just churn out permit sets for developers, and he's sad, and he reminded me. He said, Kevin, I go to work and I draw stuff that I hate, and I never drive by my building because I'm not proud of them. And I don't respect my bosses, and I don't respect my clients even more. I was like, you get to decide whatever you draw oftentimes becomes a building. He's like, I have a bigger retirement account than you, but he's like, face it, Kevin, and we all know this too. He's like, I'm an architect, so it's not that big. So it did help me realize, so I was like sad for a day, and then he reminded me that I get to do this. And after my bankruptcy, I'm going to still do this. I'll just do more affordable housing. Awesome. I get to run into the burning building. I get to choose to run into the burning building. Like, what part our social fabric is frayed. Cool, I'm going to go darn that hole. And it feels fantastic to be able to do that. Which ties into the idea. Anything.
So do you have a go-to general contractor? Who builds those?
Ooh, good question. Most of the buildings that I've shown you are stick frame, either slab on grade. Yeah, I don't think I've done a crawl space building. I oftentimes will find a residential builder who I respect and like, and I want to hang out with. Portland is bigger than Omaha, but it still has the same kind of, people know their neighbors in Portland, and they know who's good and who's bad. If you told me, hey, Kevin, who's a good architect? I can give you a name, but more importantly, I can tell you who's a good electrician? I would say, here's 3 that you shouldn't hire. It's that kind of city where like reputation matters. So I'll find a small residential builder, and I'll sit down and say, hey, like these details are the same that you're used to building. That's a 2x6 is a 2x6. Sheetrock, sheetrock. You know, I wouldn't hire a small residential builder to do a 5/1 job, but I'm happiest when I can have a good relationship with you. And usually the first product that, say you're the builder, you build for me, it's rough for both of us, but we still respect and like each other at the end of it. And then you'll build 4 or 5 more for me, and it's really fun. And then usually you outgrow me, and then I can't afford you anymore. But that's oftentimes what this looks like. Does that answer your question? Yeah. So, you know the left brain, right brain world. So I feel like I'm pretty good at that. Like I got this down. I can toggle back and forth between the pro forma and the design, napkin, sketch, and I'm really happy with this. Now it's more head and heart. As I said, like running into the burning building, fixing the frayed fabric of our the social contract feels like it's not what it was. I sound old now, but when I was younger, and I'm unhappy about that. So we could do something about that. Like most of us can do something about that. So, same concept, but how can I bring more of my heart into the equation? Today, so I flew in this morning, and Omaha does look different. There were no homeless when I was here 30 years ago. I saw a couple homeless here, but it's still significantly better than Portland, Oregon, that's for sure. But if Omaha has folk living on the street, good God, this is like the last bastion of where that was ever going to happen. So Portland, it's a problem. There are 12,000 homeless in Portland. I'm stepping over people in sleeping bags on the sidewalk to get to my office. That's not okay. So I bought this house because it's zoned commercially. The standard lots in Portland are 50 feet by 100 feet. And then, drum roll for Ben. So Ben came to my office for a week. I thought I didn't pay him. You just told me when we were getting coffee 3 hours ago that I paid you. That's awesome. I don't believe in unpaid internships. I think it's fucked up that architects do unpaid internships. And I know I'm broke, but I'm like, did I pay you? I'm so happy that I did. So it's worth it. And then that's Ben. And then I like when you don't say anything for a slide. I don't need to say anything on that slide. So then we built it. It's my first internally subsidized project. So this is a market rate apartment. I want to rent this apartment for as much as I possibly can because it's cool, because design matters. I want to show other developers that are getting, X per square foot for their market rate apartments that I can get more than X per square foot. And they're like, well, what's why? I'm like, because design matters. Care about who you hire. Hire good architects. And the finished project, so this is homeless housing. There's 7 units here, 2 market rate apartments, no, six units, 2 market rate apartments. They're meant for like $2,000 a month for a 1-bedroom, super expensive. 3, there's a hair salon, 3 retail spots, hair salon, coffee shop, vegan, because it's Portland, vegan sandwich shop. And then the 6th and final unit is an 11-bed SRO. And I went to the city to get permits, and they're like, yeah, we haven't issued an SRO permit in about 85 years. But I partnered with an outfit that wants to get people off the streets, and now there are 11 folk who used to be sleeping in parks or in their cars who called us home. And it's internally subsidized because my investors, we said, we're not going to maximize profit. That's not what this is. Like, you live in this city with us. We're going to agree on a humane return. It's going to be lucrative-ish for you, but that's not our goal. Our goal is to be part of the solution. And it was crazy how many people. I crowdfunded this. I raised $300,000 in like 11 hours online. The smallest investment was $3,000. That's the minimum investment is $3,000. Folk who invest $3,000 into homeless housing, they get like a 5% interest return. Like, I don't care what the return is. I want to be part of the solution. And it was so fun to do that. Any questions about that? I mean, we can do these things. That's the fun thing. If you get to figure out what phase 0 is, you don't have to, if you own, how many people here own their own firm? All right, you're waiting for the phone to ring, asking for someone to say, like, hey, I want you to design something with like $1,000 gallon paint on the exterior. Or I want you to build an SRO that takes homeless people off the street. Like, you're dreaming for that call, for that client. So, and if you're everyone else in the firm who works for you, you're hoping that if you get that phone call, that you're working on that job. So it's very passive, what we're doing. So I implore you to at least dip your toe in this water. Another auto body shop, every city has a lot of them. Every bay you see that used to be a car is now a restaurant. And then this little kind of, there was a tiny little bit of set where that little ramp is, of right-of-way that could be built on. So I'm like, well, I'm gonna build on that. So that's truly an actual, the 5th restaurant. Portland has a Somali population, not as big as Minneapolis is, but there's a lot of Somali refugees that live in Portland. And this neighborhood, commercially, had a lot of halal shops, had a lot of Somali-owned businesses. And I remember one evening I was sitting at the dining room table, and my son, at the time he's in high school, he said, hey, Dad, you're a gentrifier. No, I'm not. Please pass the butter. And by the end of the dinner, I'm like, oh, shit, I'm a total gentrifier. And I knew that I bought this building. I'm like, I'm going to fix this up and do more micro restaurants because I'm good at it. It's easy. I'm going to like the design. It's left brain, right brain. But now it's head and heart. So I'm like, I don't want to be displacing people, but I also don't want, gentrification is a weird topic. I don't know if Omaha's going through it in any significant way. Is it? I'm seeing some nodding. So like, how do you fix up a neighborhood without, how do you do that? And I'm not that smart. Don't know if you've realized that or not, but I'm not that smart. So I used a blunt instrument, and I said, okay, cool. I'm going to rent one of these restaurants to a Somali immigrant who has recently been displaced from the street because of gentrification. I'm going to rent it to her for 3 years because the research shows that if you can withstand a gentrification cycle for the first 3 years, then you do really, really well. If you could stay there, all the new wallets that come in benefit you. So Cadro opened up, she's the middle space there with a blue sign, and her rent was $999 a month, and everyone else was double that. And she did really well. And it's my first, I call it a reverse gentrification project, and then a coworker said, that's not a thing. So I don't know what I call it, but it's just another experiment where I get to own phase zero and I get to try something and see if it works. They loved it. Well, you know what's funny? The product before, Jolene's first cousin, where I had homeless and $2,000 a month rent lofts in the same building. That was akin to your question too. And I remember a reporter's like that's a bad idea. Like, I don't think you're going to get anyone who's going to want to pay $2,000 a month. I'm like, well, that's the neat thing about owning phase zero. Like, if I'm wrong, like, I'm the one who suffers. Because I know I can make the 5% interest payments to the investors, but if there's nothing left for me, I'm okay with that. It's still part of the experiment. And it's so easy to rent those market rate apartments because they're sexy as hell. And the sushi place next to Cadro, paying $2,000 a month, he's happy to be, like, there aren't, it's not like he's gonna go down the street to the other micro restaurant cluster with the fire pit and the microbrewery. Like, I'm the only guy. So if he comes on board, it's not begrudgingly, it's because he believes in it. And by the way, then he meets Cadro, and he friggin' loves Cadro. So it's a good part of the experiment.
Is there an element of street cred involved with the paying double market rate, and you're helping out the reverse gentrification process?
I don't think so. I don't think, if you're a small business, you don't even care. You're just looking at your own math. And for the sushi place next door, it works. Yeah, I mean, but oddly enough, the sushi guy next door he's a Burmese immigrant. So he's like, hey, dude, when are you going to do the Burmese experiment? So this is my last product I'll show you, I think. This will be done in about 3 months. The Atomic Orchard experiment. It's my first pass at legal discrimination. Again, phase zero. Like, what do you want to fix? What do you want to work on? So it's hard for me to figure out homelessness. It really is. Like, I've tried 11 beds at a time. It's not enough. I'm not going to do a 100-unit SRO. All the research shows that's a horrible. Like concentrating poverty like that is great for bad outcomes. Arson and rape happen when there's 150 cots in a hangar. So I was struggling with this, and I talked to my coworkers. I'm like, what should we do? And we came up with the idea of, I know. If you're working on the front lines of the homelessness epidemic in Portland, I can honor you. So this is a project, and it's the Atomic Orchard experiment. 50% of the lofts will rent, similar to the idea I just talked about, for $2,000 a month. They're really sexy lofts. That's the interior. That's a garage door. You have a spiral staircase that goes to where your bed is. You open up your entire wall. Instead of a tacked-on porch, your living room is the porch. You have a 17-foot ceiling. It's pretty sexy. $2,000 a month. I don't know what the equivalent in Omaha is, but I want to be like the place. Like, it's so funny because everyone calls himself a loft. I'm like, if you have 8.5-foot ceilings and sheetrock on every plane, it's not a loft. It's just an apartment with a nice countertop. So 50% are market rate. The other 50%, the investors and I have agreed to hold. If you're a social worker, and every day you wake up, you go and you work on the front lines of the homelessness problem in Portland, Oregon, here's your key, $1,000 a month. I don't care if you're rich. This isn't affordable housing for working poor. If you're a social worker, you're probably poor, but I want to honor what you're doing. But we can do this for anything. If you're a firefighter, if you're a first responder, my wife's a hospice nurse, if you're a hospice nurse, I want to honor, our city needs you desperately. Omaha likely doesn't have the kind of displacement residentially that the coast has. I'm sure it doesn't, that the coasts have. But people are commuting in because they can't afford nice places to work on the front lines of Sisters of the Road Cafe or transition housing projects. So here's your key. Thank you very much. $1,000 a month. If you quit your job and you work and become a hedge fund manager, that's fine. Just a year late, like at some juncture, you got to move on to let the next person move in. I'm not going to be aggressive about it because what you have done makes our city better. And then I talked to my lawyer about that. I'm like, can I do that? That's literally discrimination. I want to be proud of saying that. I want to tell, like a reporter said, do you want to maybe not talk so much about like this? Like, no, I think this is the right answer. And my lawyer said, your profession is not a protected class. I can't say I won't rent to you because you're heterosexual, or you because you're a man, or you because you're Christian. Like, those are all protected classes. You chose to be architects. So I can legally say, I will not rent to you because you're an architect. Or in this case, I will rent to you because you're a social worker. So I asked my lawyer, I'm like, does that mean I can say I won't rent to lawyers? He said yes. I don't know why I put this in here, but it seemed to make sense. So obviously, I've probably given you the fact that this isn't, like, again, the bar is low in my industry in America for being a good developer. Like, as long as I'm not this, I'm a good developer. These guys, 30 years ago, taught me that you can be a good business person. They're probably great business people. I don't know. They're both retired. I emailed Perry, like, hey, I'm coming to town. He's like, yeah, I'm on a boat in Europe. So they're probably really good business people. But I always think of this, and it's not unlike my friend Francis, who said, like, hey, Kevin, look what you created. Look what you did. And for me, it's less about my legacy. I couldn't give a crap about legacy. The buildings that I made will all be gone in 100 years, probably less. They're wood frame. Some might last a little longer than 50, but they have a shelf life to them. So that's not a legacy that I care much about. What I care about, again, is who I hand keys to, like Cadro, like the Burmese guy, Sonder, next door. He's he instead of saying, hey, I'm bummed that I'm paying twice what Cadro is paying, he's saying, thanks for renting to me because I have no business plan. I have nothing to show you. I just know I'm a really good cook, but you don't know that I'm a really good cook, and you said yes to me. So I am so lucky to have relationships that on your deathbed, that's all you'll have. That's all we'll have. And I don't care that I'm talking to a bankruptcy lawyer right now because I feel so loved and that I love so much. Probably not what you were expecting to hear in today's lecture. It's important to never read a slide. Any questions?
So why are you now in bankruptcy?
Ooh, that's a great question. Why am I in bankruptcy? The first time I lost everything, it's because banks. Because both times it's because I was dumb. So that's a common theme throughout this lecture, I think. So I have a massive risk appetite and I'm a little bit dumb. So the first time I lost everything, I cross-collateralized my buildings. I had 3 buildings. I did a LEED Platinum building. I'm really proud of that. And the lender for that building said, you don't have enough equity. Your net worth is pretty thin. So I want you to also put these other 2 buildings you have as collateral against this loan. I'm like, okay. Like, will you give me a loan if I say yes, if I sign that? And they're like, yeah, of course. So I'm like, that sounds great. Also, my wife signed the documents. I'm like, hey, in for a penny, in for a pound. No, bad idea. So, the bank foreclosed on me. My wife, the hospice nurse wife, is getting her wages garnished. Really a bad scene. Like, why she's still with me, I have no idea. But I will never, ever do that again. But again, history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. I never had investors before, so that's why I needed to use smoke and mirrors and cross-collateralization. And whatever the bank said, I would say yes to. Now I have investors. Now I have 60 plus wealthy people who have all chipped in to say, I believe in what you're doing. And they really do believe in what I'm doing. And they're great, big-hearted, wonderful people. But when it gets a little bit weird, like 60 out of 60, it's probably a little naive of me to think that there wouldn't be one or two who might have a problem in the pandemic, or get scared when a product took longer, or when the returns weren't as stout as they were hoping, because they're wealthy for a reason. So my main investor built and sold the company SurveyMonkey, wealthy guy, big-hearted guy, lovely guy, a friend of mine, and he is suing me for more money than I could ever make in my life, and he will win, because that's how the legal system works. And I signed, well, he should win, because I signed documents. He put documents in front of me, like, just like with the bank. Instead of the bank, it's now Chris Finley. Oh yeah, Chris, you're a nice guy, of course. Like, I just want to move forward and keep doing phase zero. I want to keep making projects. So my next chapter, I won't have investors, but it'll, I'll probably still make mistakes, but hopefully not that large. But anyway, that's why it's kind of it's a boring answer, but I'm naive and too trustworthy, too trusting.
So how cool were your wife and your kids with this experiments of moving in garages and everything else, giving up the prototypical American lifestyle?
That's a great question. My kids friggin' loved it. My kids thought it was an adventure. I mean, LJ, my youngest at the time, was 6, so we lived. We lived where the bunny rabbits were, and where's our backyard? So yeah, this is our house. There's my youngest. We'd just be sitting there, and there's 4 micro-restaurants, and I've never done micro-restaurants before. So I'm nervous and excited, and it's summer in Portland, which is the best time of the year, and I'd say, hey, LJ, go count how many people are at the restaurant. So she would go around, and she always was in roller skates. Like, she just lived in roller skates. Her first job was at the Pie Spot, our tenant. For $1 a day, she had to water their plants, and she would only get paid if she wore roller skates. So it was pretty great to be a kid living this way. My wife had a harder time because home, yard, fence, neighbors, that's what we all aspire to. That's what we know. That's the American dream. And so it's also weird to have it chosen for you. Like, it's fine if she's like, if I presented this and said, hey, do you want to do this? And we can keep our house and rent it out. I'm sure she'd say yes. But when I said, hey, we have to sell our house to pay debts and live in an old auto body shop, that's hard to take. So it was easier for the kids than for my wife.
How did you find your investors then?
Oh, it's the same way I'd find them here. I mean, literally, if you get a tiny little bit of press, and if you're doing a fun project, I didn't solicit my investors. They came to me, and they were like, hey, I want part of that. It was cool. Like, I want to own a little bit of that micro. I want to own a little bit of the zipper. How do I get in on that? And then, if you mention that, if you suggested that, you and I would go get a cup of coffee, and I would ask you all kinds of questions about, have you ever sued anybody? How do you look, what is your worldview? Are you, have you read Nietzsche? Are you a slave mentality or master mentality person? These are good questions, and I want to know about you. And it wasn't that hard. When people, so if anyone asks me to get a cup of coffee, I always say yes, no matter what. And I've had over, 400 cups of coffee with strangers in my life. Professionally, people like Ben, hey, you flew out and built a model. You didn't have to do all that. But, and you always ask, how do I do what you do? And I basically tell you what I just have told you over the last hour. And almost every time the person's like, yeah, is there another way? There's at first I say, do you have a rich uncle or aunt? No. Okay, buy fixer-uppers, do what I did. Like I bought little houses, I flipped houses, I made money. I had just enough, and then again, smoke and mirrors and leverage and all kinds of creative financing, and I did my first project. And then it's like being an architect. My wife was always like, why do they have unbuilt design awards? That's dumb. So, so I could be a developer all day long, and if I show you, and you're a lender, if I show you pretty drawings, you're like, yeah, I don't feel very good about giving you money. If I show you photographs, like, oh, you're real. Okay, cool, let's talk. So the first one's always the hardest, just like in architecture. And then it gets progressively easier, but there's a lot more money than there is creativity. Like you guys are rare. It's so funny because society devalues design right now. And architects, again, keep getting the smaller seat at the table, but it's so much harder to do what you do than to just have a sack of cash. So we're also pretty shitty negotiators, and we don't say no enough when a bad client comes our way. I mean, that's a whole other lecture that I won't bore you with, but the money usually finds me, and then I don't read the contracts, and then I sign the papers, and then I file bankruptcy. In that order.
What have you learned about what micro-restaurants will work?
But which ones will work? Oh, that's maybe the best part of my job is I have to research the micro restaurants. So my coworkers and I, like the Sudra, the vegan Indian place. I'm like, that sounds like a horrible idea. Like I don't like vegan food, and I like Indian food, but I don't know. So, but Sanjay, he's the owner. He's like, yeah, I've got a food cart. Do you guys have food carts here? Okay, so in Portland, it's food carts. They're permanent, and it's a neat culture. It's very cool. He's like, hey, I've got a food cart downtown. Just come by. I'm like, to try the food? He's like, yeah, to try the food, but mostly just come by at lunch tomorrow. So my coworkers and I went by, and sure enough, there was like a line 20 deep at Sanjay's food cart. So I'm like, cool, I'm gonna eat it, because it's research, but I knew right then and there that I was gonna sign a lease with him, because I don't have to love you, but if this is the demand, you're doing something right. And then we ate it, and it was fantastic. So that is the funnest part of my job.
And the restaurant you're talking about right now, is that rent really $2,000 a month
Yeah.
in that space? How many square feet is that?
Well, I provide the full kitchen.
Oh, it's one kitchen, 4 restaurants.
No. I built each of the 4 restaurants out with their own kitchen. So it's a huge expense. Normally, in Portland, the starting, to buy an existing restaurant would cost about $100,000. So you literally just show up, here's the key, start cooking tomorrow. So I'm kind of in many ways like their SBA lender as well, because it's fully decked out. And that was part of I've never done that before, that was part of the experiment. But yeah, what I say is, if you can gross your rent on your best day of the month, it always works. So you've got to be able to sell $2,000 worth of sushi on a nice Saturday, and they usually all do.
And the square footage is how big?
So no, that's a good question. You're talking like a developer, not an architect. Are you an architect? You own a business?
I own several businesses, so I know a lot about this.
Yeah. So the architects will understand the response. So there's your premises, what you own that no one else owns, is like 280 square feet, which is a crazy price per square foot. That makes no sense at all. But 4 toilet rooms, the mop room, a common dining area, there's 150 seats that aren't part of your space that all get factored in. And like the best microbrewery in town, Gigantic Brewing, is 2 doors, is in the same complex, and they have no food. And they bring so many people. It's just packed every day. So it's about location, volume. It's about all those things. And the funny thing is, the math from a developer's point of view. I mean, Ben, you work for a developer. I can then show a bank, I'm getting this much per square foot for rent, which is no one's getting that much. It's a ton. But Sanjay thinks it's a screaming deal because he doesn't spend $100,000. So it's this weird That's part of the fun, is just finding the sweet spot. Where's your deal breaker and where's your deal breaker, and how can I mend that together?
Yeah, it's just weird because it's like I lived in Portland, and the food there is the same price as in Omaha, and I'm just like, how is this possible? Like breakfast is the same.
And it's good. It's really freaking good, isn't it?
And I'm just like, how can they do that? Because it seems like rent in Omaha would be so much more cheap.
It is cheaper here.
I don't know. It seems like all the apartments they're building now are like $2,000 plus for small places.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know how people start.
Oh, I'm sorry, you guys. That sucks. Oh, I don't even know how to respond to that. That sucks. This was like the last bastion for me. This is Omaha. I'm sorry.
It seems like all of your projects have started with a vision, an idea, an experiment. And I'm curious how many of those, because of the financial situation, how many of those do you still own?
Yep.
Versus how many have fallen into other hands, and do they share your same vision?
That's a really good question. So at my peak, I had 18 employees and I had 28 buildings. I owned 28 buildings, and we managed and took care of and signed leases for 28 buildings. And I was proud of that, and it was awesome. And now, the phrase that bankruptcy lawyers use is that the ice cube is melting. So if I'm lucky, I'm selling my piece of a building or a building itself and giving the investors their money. My goal is to get everybody off my boat before it sinks. This one bad investor is taking me down. If the rest of you are investors in my projects, all right, cool. Like, you shouldn't suffer because of what's happening. So I am selling everything. I'm not gonna, when you file bankruptcy, a bankruptcy trustee steps in and takes everything. So I'm like, I'd rather be in control of this and then give you your money back, and give you your money back and you. And so now I think I own 7 buildings, and by the end of the summer, it'll be 4. Like the Atomic Orchard experiment, the last one I showed you, like, I'm gonna sign my ownership over to the rest of the investors. Like, they're lovely, like please keep the experiment going. And then before I sell a building, I go to all my commercial tenants and I say, what do you need from me? What do you want? And usually I'll sign one-way leases where I'll say, cool, like Sanjay, the Indian restaurant. I'll sign a 10-year lease extension with you, and you have the right to terminate the lease with 90 days notice for a $1 fee. So it's like a one-way street, like the landlord is because no matter what, the lease is stronger than ownership. A new owner can't step in and say, yeah, your lease means nothing to me. They legally have to honor the lease. So Sanjay gets control for a decade, but if 3 years from now there's another recession or it gets weird, he wants to move to Aruba, he can get out. So I'm kind to my tenants because they're like my family. I do love them.
What's the climate like working in Portland in regard to working with the city, like planning and building departments?
Yeah, it's worse than it was, but it's better than any other West Coast city. It's worse than Omaha. Omaha's a lot easier to work. I shouldn't say that like I know what I'm talking about. It's been 30 years since I've been here. 30 years ago was awesome working here. But I put my money on it still being easier here than there. And if you believe in what you do, like, I'm not trying to be weird or greedy. These are pretty simple buildings from a code perspective. Like everything I've shown you meets building code. There's no adjustments necessary for my entitlements are across the over-the-counter entitlements. So it's nothing exotic. I mean, granted, Portland also has really thoughtful planning and zoning codes, so it's fun to work in a city like that wants what I'm showing you. Would it be harder for me to do this here? No? That's great. Yes? I mean, the stuff I'm more interested in now, the head and heart stuff, those are more like financial experiments. So like, an apartment building's an apartment building. That'll be easy to do. It's how the rents work and the money flows. That's now more compelling to me than building the zipper, which, the city had a hard time with the zipper but yeah, it worked out. I had to prove that there was enough area of windows, even though you couldn't see the windows because the artwork covered the windows. But that was simple math. Yeah.
How do money bag investors view you in the project?
3 people think I'm an asshole. I got an email 2 days ago from someone who's like, I'm not going away, you owe me. He lost everything in the dumbbell. The dumbbell was a complete wipeout for everybody, except for the main guy who's the Survey Monkey guy. He now owns the dumbbell, and he pushed everyone else off the game plank. So this one guy, John, he's like, you're a charlatan, you're a bad man. And at first because I'm, was raised with Catholic guilt, I thought, oh, maybe I am. And now I realize that, no, John, you're a wealthy guy, and you invested in a speculative office building in Portland, Oregon before the pandemic. I was like the tip of the spear, so I went down hard, and then I look around, I'm like, oh, everyone's losing. This is not a Kevin Cavanaugh specific problem. So aside from those 3, everyone else is super, they call me up and they're like, hey, how you doing? Thank you for not just turning tail and running. Thank you for still staying in the trenches and fighting for and trying to give us our money back.
Would you look outside of Portland?
Oh, good question. No, I would not. If you gave me the address of in Portland, Oregon, I'll tell you what color the house or building is. I just know it so well. And I do always want to own my stuff. So, but I don't want to drive a half an hour I'm just lazy.
So the numbers have to be harder to make work there.
Well, the numbers don't work. So every state, I was talking to Ben about this earlier, every state that I know of, I don't know if Nebraska's done this, there is an affordable housing crisis that's national. West Virginia has the smallest gap between the market rate housing and affordable housing. So, it's so funny. There's so many statistics, and not statistics, there's so many people who talk about the fentanyl epidemic and the opioid epidemic and homelessness and how, and what's the cause of it. The state that has the worst opioid epidemic numbers in the nation is West Virginia, and they also have the smallest amount of homelessness, and it's because you could rent a house for $300 apartment for $300 a month. Housing first, housing first, housing first. That was a little bit of a rant. Sorry, I totally forget your question.
I'm just saying Portland has to be more expensive than other cities across the country that you could maybe solve some of these issues.
So the first chunk of the slideshow, I can't do those now. The day where you would give me, I get $300,000 worth of investor money, I'd get a bank loan, and I'd hire that guy in the back who asked about which GC do I use, and I build a zipper for $106 a square foot, which that's what it costs to build a zipper. I know, but it's 2x6s and plywood, and there's nothing to it. It's off the, people have, a friend called my stuff, you're state of the shelf. I'm like, what does that mean? It's well, it's not state of the art, it's because everything you build with, you just get off the shelf at Home Depot. It's not expensive materials. It's just how you use them that matters. But nothing that I showed in the beginning of the slideshow works now. That was the glory of 4% interest money and $106 a square foot construction costs. Now it's $300 a square foot construction costs and 7.5% money, upside down. But like I was saying to Ben, every state has an affordable housing crisis, and most every state that I hear of, my friend in Minnesota, she's an affordable housing developer. Minnesota has raised $2 billion towards affordable housing. Oregon's raised $1 billion. So I'm going in I permits in for 2 projects, one for single mother housing, which is a discrimination that I don't think I'm going to be able to get around legally. So to be determined how I do that. And then another homeless housing project. And there's 2 on the heels of that. 60% AMI housing. So it's $280,000 per 1-bedroom apartment. most people are taking that with a bank loan and a little bit of bank loan, a little bit of investors to make it work. 280, that's all I need. That builds me the building, permits, architecture fees, land. I can do it. So that's what I'm doing. But everything I showed you before, the really sexy stuff, that was just a different chapter in my life.
So there's philanthropy then involved now going forward?
Yeah, like that's when Ross introduced me and he said, Cavanaugh's like looking into subsidy-free, like subsidy-less affordable housing. Yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm so sorry. The math is completely upside down. And my guess is it is here too. Like I was hanging out with Albert, thanks. I never pronounced his name right. Macchietto? You just Albert. He just sat there, but now he's the boss. So, and the numbers here are pretty similar to Portland. It's like $300 a square foot for hard costs, and like the land is cheaper, but the interest rates are the same. You don't have 4% money here, so I don't know how you guys do it. My guess is there's a lot of help in the capital stack, a lot of subsidy in the capital stack to make it work. But you guys are building. You guys are busy. I say that is I should ask. Are you guys busy? Albert's busy. Yeah. Without a big fat subsidy. Yeah. Do you guys have state money? That's a shame. Ben, do you have? Yeah. Where's your money come from? Oh, LIHTC. Okay. Yeah. But if you're paying $2,000 a month for market rate apartments, do you have a homelessness problem here? Yeah, it's going to get worse. If you're paying $2,000 a month for apartments, it's... No, but I'm just letting you know it's going to get worse. Like if I come back and lecture in 2 years, yeah, it'll be worse than it is today. If there's not affordable housing money that's aggressively being attacking the problem, and if market rate is, $1,600, $1,700, $1,800 a month for a one bedroom, that sounds too much like Portland back when we had 3,000 and now we have 12,000. So it's tricky.
There's a group called Front Porch Investments. You should look it up.
Okay.
It's privately funded, but they do like low interest loans
Yeah.
for private and nonprofit developers. And they have a bunch of different programs, but that's kind of like propping up affordable housing.
That's great. Yeah, this room has so much creativity, and if you haven't already gotten it from my chat, it shouldn't just be with a fat pen and tracing paper. Our creativity should go into the financial world. Like, how can we crack this nut? Because as a society, it's not going away. It's only getting worse. And there's a lot of smart people in this room, in our field. God, I talk a lot. Thanks, you guys.
Thanks, Kevin. That was a great lecture. We never really had development and stuff like that. So that was, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great deviation from just like sexy design, huge, big buildings. So this is great. Our next lecture will be July 15th.